Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you know that in the previous class we discussed about respiration and the types of respiration, that is aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Now today we are going to discuss about the human respiratory system. As far as the respiratory system in man is concerned, it has two parts: respiratory tract and respiratory organ. Respiratory tract, it is the path for fresh and foul air. It is formed of the following parts: nostrils, which are also called as external nares, nasal cavity, pharynx, trachea, also called as the windpipe, bronchi, bronchioles, alveolar ducts, and alveoli. As far as the respiratory organ is concerned, there are a pair of lungs. Now we will see the journey of air. It starts with the nostrils, which are called as the external nares. There are two large-sized apertures present at the lower end of nose and above the mouth. And these nostrils, they are for inhalation. That is, the air enters here from these nostrils inside the nasal chambers, which is the next part of the respiratory tract. Nasal chambers, they are two long-sized chambers inside the nose. These are separated from the buccal cavity by a hard palate and supported by bones, while they are separated or divided internally from each other by a septum, central septum, making the two nasal chambers. Inside the nasal chamber, these nasal chambers, they are lined with the mucus secreting cells and the cilia, which acts as a filter which prevents the entry of the microbes and the dust particles. The lower hairy part acts as the filter. Middle part, it acts as an air conditioner. It humidifies air and makes the air equal to the body temperature. And the upper part of the nasal chamber is for smelling. The air from the nasal chambers is passed to the pharynx through the internal nares. This pharynx, it is the common passage for both air and food. The lower part of the pharynx has got two openings, glottis and glut. Glottis, it leads to trachea, while as glut, it leads to the food pipe. The esophagus or food pipe, it lies dorsal to the trachea. While swallowing the food, the glottis, which is the slit-like aperture at the anterior end of trachea, it gets covered by a small cartilaginous flap of skin, which is called as epiglottis. This epiglottis, it acts as a lid and prevents food or water from entering into the respiratory tract, and that is why we are advised not to talk during eating. So from the epiglottis, from the pharynx, the air, it passes through the trachea. The upper part of trachea is called as the larynx or the voice box. It has got vocal cords, and by the vibration of these vocal cords, by the exhaled air, the sound is produced and we are able to speak. Now the trachea, it is about 11 centimeter in length approximately and 2.5 centimeter in diameter. Its wall is provided with the incomplete C-shaped cartilaginous rings, which prevents the trachea from collapsing even if there is not much air in it. Trachea is also lined with the epithelium and mucus secreting cells. Both of them prevent the entry of dust particles and microbes. Trachea runs down the neck and extends into the thoracic cavity. And on entering the thoracic cavity, trachea, it divides into two bronchi. On entering the lungs, the right bronchi, it divides into three bronchi or bronchioles, which enter into the three lobes of the right lung. As the right lung has got three lobes, 1, 2 and 3, while as the left lung has got only 2 lobes. So the right bronchus, it divides into 3 bronchi and enter into the 3 lobes of the right lung, and the left bronchus, it divides into 2 bronchi, 1 bronchus entering into each lobe of the left lung. Within the lung, each bronchus, it divides and redivides to form fine branches which are called as bronchioles. Each bronchus with all its branches is called as bronchial intercom or bronchial tree. After repeated divisions, each bronchiole ends with the alveolar duct, which ends with a cluster of tiny air chambers, sac-like structures, which are just the bunch of grapes. These sac-like structures are called as alveoli. And these alveoli, they are the functional units of lungs, as they are the actual sites of respiration, or the gases exchange takes place here. There are about 750 million alveoli present in lungs, which have a total surface area of about 100 square meter. Alveoli are covered with a network of capillaries, and it is the site here the gases exchange takes place. Now, the second part is the respiratory organ, which is lungs. In man, there are two lungs, which are spongy, elastic, pinkish colored, and they are bag-like structures. They are present in the thoracic cavity and they are roughly cone-shaped. It is lower end, lower surface of the lungs, they rest on the diaphragm, which forms the floor of the thoracic cavity. These lungs are on the vertebral, on the dorsal side, they are protected by the vertebral column, and on the lateral sides, they are protected by the ribs, ventrally by the sternum here, and diaphragm on the posterior side. Diaphragm, it is a muscular partition and separates the thoracic cavity from this abdominal cavity. The lungs, apart from these lungs are enclosed by a double layered membrane, which is called as the pleura, the outer parietal pleura and inner visceral pleura. And these membranes, they are separated by a thin space which is filled with a fluid which is called as the pleural fluid, which lubricates the membrane and avoids the friction, avoid the lungs from friction. The right lung, it is larger, broader, heavier, and has got 3 lobes, while as the left lung, it is smaller, narrower, and lighter, and has got 2 lobes. It is smaller or longer because the heart, to accommodate the heart, because the heart is slightly tilted towards the left side. So these lungs, they play a very important role in the mechanism of breathing. So this was all about the human respiratory system. I think it is sufficient, and For the students, the assignment is you have to draw a neat and lively diagram of human respiratory system. Okay, so with this we will wind up today's class. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.